The library book hit the floor with a crack that echoed through the silence. Sophia Perry's hands trembled as she knelt to pick it up, but before her fingers could touch the spine, a boot kicked it across the polished tile. 17-year-old Sophia looked up at Manly Rocco through dark, frightened eyes, the same eyes that hadn't shed a tear in 3 years, not since the night her voice disappeared forever. "What's wrong, freak?" Manly sneered, his expensive cologne mixing with the musty smell of old books. "Can't even say please?" His two friends laughed, cruel, hollow sounds that made the handful of people in the Oildale Public Library suddenly find their books very interesting. 23 witnesses, 23 people who looked away. But beneath a reading table near the biography section, a German shepherd with intelligent eyes and a black and tan coat lifted his massive head. The scars on his muzzle caught the afternoon light, souvenirs from a war most people would never understand. And the man beside him, dark hair, military short beneath a faded navy cap, wearing a worn leather jacket over a frame built by 10 years of combat, set down the newspaper he'd been pretending to read. His hand, marked with the same woven bracelet his sister had made him a decade ago, slowly curled into a fist. Before we continue, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and follow this story to the very end. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels around the world. Don Perry hadn't planned on coming back to Oildale. He'd been driving for 18 hours straight, windows down on his battered F-150, trying to outrun ghosts that always caught up around midnight. Foxtrot, the German shepherd who'd saved his life in Kandahar, had started that low, insistent whine around dawn, the kind that meant, "I know where we're going and you need to stop running." So Perry had pulled off Highway 99, following memory more than GPS, past the rusted "Welcome to Oildale, California" sign that somebody had spray-painted with "Turn Back." He was 32 years old, 10 years in the Navy SEALs, 8 combat deployments, 2 Purple Hearts in a shoebox under his truck seat, and a dishonorable discharge that tasted like battery acid every time he thought about it. The uniform he'd once worn with pride now sat in a duffel bag, gathering dust and broken promises. He couldn't afford new clothes, couldn't afford much of anything except gas money and dog food. But some things couldn't be measured in money, like the need to see his baby sister one more time, even if she wouldn't recognize him, even if she shouldn't forgive him. Perry found a parking spot across from the library, the same library where their mother used to take them every Saturday, before the accident, before the silence, before he'd abandoned Sophia to save himself. The building looked smaller than he remembered. Everything did. He'd watched Sophia enter 20 minutes ago, her dark hair pulled back, wearing layers of thrift store clothes that hung on her thin frame. She'd glanced over her shoulder twice, the nervous habit of someone used to being hunted, before disappearing through the glass doors. Perry had told himself he'd just watch, make sure she was safe, then leave before he saw him, before his damaged, dangerous presence contaminated the fragile life she'd built without him. But Foxtrot had other ideas. The ears had gone flat against his skull the moment Manly Rocco and his friends entered the library. That low growl, the one that had warned Perry about IEDs, ambushes, and death disguised as friendly faces, vibrated through the truck cab. "Easy, boy," Perry had whispered, but his own instincts were screaming the same warning. He'd grabbed the newspaper from the passenger seat and followed his sister inside, Foxtrot at his heel. Old habits, the kind that kept you alive overseas but made you paranoid at home. Perry had found a table with clear sight lines to both exits and a direct view of the teen study area where Sophia always sat. He knew because he'd been watching her for 3 days, building up the courage to actually approach her. 3 days of watching his little sister move through the world like a ghost, silent, alone, haunted by secrets Perry could see written in the bruises she tried to hide under long sleeves. The library was quiet at this hour. A few elderly patrons browsing large print mysteries, a homeless man sleeping in the magazine section, a young mother reading to her toddler in the children's corner, and Sophia hunched over a notebook that Perry knew wasn't homework. He'd seen her writing in it obsessively, filling page after page with something that made her hands shake. Perry had ordered coffee from the vending machine, more to have something to do with his hands than because he wanted it. His therapist, the VA-assigned one he'd stopped seeing after she kept using words like adjustment disorder and post-traumatic stress, was probably right. But she was probably right. But then Manly Rocco had walked in, and all of Perry's careful plans evaporated like morning fog.
He'd recognized the kid immediately. Same entitled smirk as his father, Stanley Rocco, the oil mogul who'd bought half of Kern County with money that smelled like bribery and environmental violations. Same soft hands that had never worked a day. Same eyes that said, "The rules don't apply to me." Perry had tracked Manly's approach through the reflection in the window, every muscle in his body going taut. Foxtrot had pressed against his leg, the dog's breathing shallow and alert. Manly had chosen the table directly across from Sophia. Not coincidence. This was deliberate, planned, hunting. Perry had watched his sister's shoulders tense, watched her try to make herself smaller, watched her gather her books like she was preparing to run. But Manly had been faster. "Hey, freak." Manly's voice cut through the library quiet like a knife through silk. Heads turned, then quickly looked away. The universal language of not my problem. Sophia's hands froze on her textbook. Perry could see her knuckles turning white from across the room. "I'm talking to you." Manly leaned across the table, invading her space with practiced cruelty. "My dad says your brother's a coward who got kicked out of the military for being a screw-up. That true?" Perry's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Under the table, Foxtrot's growl deepened. Sophia didn't respond, couldn't respond, but her eyes, those dark eyes that looked so much like their mother's, filled with something worse than fear. Shame. She was ashamed. Of him, of the family name he'd destroyed, of the brother who'd left there alone with their grief. "What's the matter?" Manly grabbed one of Sophia's books, a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, and held it out of her reach. "Can't got your tongue? Oh wait, I forgot. You don't have a tongue. You're just a mute little freak who—" The book hit the floor. Then another. Then another. Sophia scrambled to pick them up, but Manly's boots sent them skittering across the tile. His friends, two carbon copies of entitled mediocrity, laughed like hyenas watching a kill. "Speak up, freak," Manly taunted. "Say something, anything. Or are you too stupid to even—" He reached out and shoved Sophia's shoulder. Not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to make his point. "You're powerless, you're alone, and nobody's gonna help you." 23 people in that library, 23 witnesses, 23 cowards who suddenly found the ceiling tiles fascinating. But Perry wasn't watching the ceiling. He was watching his baby sister, the little girl who used to make him friendship bracelets and bring him drawings of superheroes being tormented by a predator who thought money made him untouchable. And he was remembering another library in another life when Sophia was 8 and some older kids had stolen her book bag. Perry had been 14, already training for the military mindset that would define his life. He'd gotten the bag back, and he'd made sure those kids never bothered his sister again. "Touch my sister again," he'd warned them, "and you'll regret it." He meant it then. He meant it now. Manly raised his hand to shove Sophia again, harder this time, the kind of shove that would send her sprawling, and Perry moved. Not consciously, not with a plan. Instinct, pure combat-honed instinct. 1 second he was 30 feet away, the next his hand was wrapped around Manly's wrist, stopping the blow mid-air with a grip that made the kid's eyes go wide with shock. "Touch my sister again," Perry said quietly, his voice carrying the calm of a man who delivered much worse threats to much more dangerous people, "and I'll break every bone in your hand." The library went silent. Sophia looked up, her eyes meeting Perry's for the first time in 10 years. He watched recognition dawn, slow, disbelieving, then flooding with emotions he couldn't begin to name. Confusion, hope, fear, love, anger, all of it at once. "Dawn?" she mouthed, no sound escaping her lips. Perry's heart cracked open. "Hey, Soph, miss me?" Manley tried to jerk his wrist free, but Perry's grip was iron. "Who the hell do you think you... I think I'm the guy who's about to teach you what happens when you bully people weaker than you." Perry's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "I'm Don Perry, and that's my little sister you just assaulted." "Your sister?" Manley's face went from indignant to calculating in a heartbeat. "You're the disgraced SEAL, the one who got kicked out for protecting my team from a corrupt commanding officer who was going to get them killed. Yeah, that's me." Perry released Manley's wrist with a shove that sent the kids stumbling backward. "Now apologize to Sophia." "I don't apologize to..." Foxtrot stood up. The dog didn't bark, didn't growl, just rose from his position under the table and positioned himself between Manley and Sophia, 80 pounds of trained military working dog radiating controlled violence. The message was clear: choose your next words carefully. Manley's friends were already backing towards the exit, but Manley himself, stupid, entitled, used to daddy's money solving every problem, pulled out his phone. "You just assaulted me," he said, fingers flying across the screen. "My dad owns half this county. The sheriff works for us. You're going to jail, and your freak sister is going to..." Perry moved again, faster this time. He plucked the phone from Manley's hand like taking candy from a child and held it just out of reach. "Your father," Perry said conversationally, "is Stanley Rocco. Oil money. Built his empire on fraud, environmental destruction, and silencing anyone who spoke out against him. I did my research." He handed the phone back. "Make your call, but understand this. I just spent 10 years fighting actual terrorists. Your daddy doesn't scare me. His lawyers don't scare me. And you..." He leaned in close enough that only Manley could hear the next words. "You are nothing but a spoiled child playing at being dangerous. Touch my sister again, and you'll find out what dangerous actually looks like." Manley's face went pale, then red, then purple. "You're dead, you hear me? Dead." "Get in line." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Perry turned to Sophia, who was still frozen in shock, surrounded by her scattered books. He knelt beside her, ignoring the approaching red and blue lights, and started gathering the volumes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not looking at her. "I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I wasn't here when Mom and Dad died. I'm sorry you had to face all of this alone." Sophia's hand touched his, trembling, tentative, and squeezed once. Then she threw her arms around his neck and held on like she'd never let go. Perry hugged her back, feeling tears he hadn't cried in a decade burning behind his eyes. "I've got you, Soph. I'm here now. I'm not leaving again." Behind them, the library doors burst open. Sheriff's deputies in Kern County uniforms, hands on weapons, scanning for the threat. And Perry knew with the certainty of a decade's worth of combat experience, that this was just the beginning. The Roccos owned this town. They owned the law. They owned the fear that kept people silent. But they didn't own him. Not anymore. Family is everything. If you'd step in to protect your sibling no matter the odds, smash that like button right now. Deputy Craig Summers had worked for the Kern County Sheriff's Department for 12 years. He knew who paid his real salary, and it wasn't the taxpayers. "Don Perry?" Summers' hand rested on his holstered Glock as he approached. "We got a report of assault." Perry stood slowly, positioning himself between the deputies and Sophia. Foxtrot moved with him, a silent shadow. 3 witnesses will tell you that Manly Rocco assaulted my sister. I intervened. That's not what Mr. Rocco says. Summers nodded towards Manly, who was now flanked by his friends, playing the victim with Oscar-worthy conviction. Mr. Rocco, Perry said flatly, is a liar. Careful, son, that's slander. It's only slander if it's not true. Perry crossed his arms. Check the security cameras. This library has them in every corner.
Summers' expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been respect, or might have been calculation. The cameras malfunction sometimes, he said carefully. How convenient. Perry, I'm going to need you to come with us, just to answer some questions. Am I under arrest? Not yet. Then I'm not going anywhere. Perry gestured to Sophia, who was clutching her notebook like a lifeline. My sister needs me. Your sister, Summers said, glancing at the teenager with thinly veiled pity, should probably find better company. Word around town is you're not exactly a stand-up guy anymore. The accusation hung in the air like gasoline, waiting for a spark. Perry smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Deputy Summers, right? Craig Summers. I know about you. Your daughter goes to USC on a scholarship that came through the Rocco Foundation. Your wife works at Rocco Medical Center. Your mortgage is held by Rocco Financial Services. Summers went very still. So when you stand there and lecture me about being a stand-up guy, Perry continued, remember that I know exactly who you're standing up for, and it's not the people you swore to protect. The deputy's jaw clenched. You're making enemies you can't afford, Perry. I've made worse enemies in worse places. They're mostly dead now. The standoff stretched. Manly was on his phone, undoubtedly calling his father. The other library patrons were filming on their phones, but Perry knew those videos would disappear before they ever saw a courtroom. This town ran on money and fear. The Roccos had both in abundance. But Perry had something they didn't. Nothing left to lose. We're leaving, he said, taking Sophia's hand. If you want to stop us, you'll have to arrest us, which means paperwork, witnesses, and questions about why Manly Rocco was harassing a minor in the first place. Summers looked at Manly. Manly looked at his phone. Some silent calculation passed between them. Get out of here, Summers finally said. But Perry, this isn't over. The Roccos don't forget. Neither do I. Perry guided Sophia toward the exit, Foxtrot clearing a path through the gawkers. As they stepped into the California sunshine, he heard Manly's voice behind them. My father is going to destroy you. Perry didn't look back. He'd heard worse threats from people who actually followed through. The house where Perry and Sophia had grown up stood at the end of Cypress Street, flanked by dead lawns and foreclosure signs. The white paint had peeled away in strips, revealing raw wood underneath like exposed bone. The windows were boarded up. A bright orange notice from the bank was stapled to the front door. Property of Rocco Financial Services. No trespassing. Sophia made a sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a sob, as Perry's truck rumbled to a stop in the driveway. They took it, Perry said quietly. When did they take it? Sophia pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, and showed him the screen. 2 years ago, after the funeral. I couldn't keep up with the payments. You were 15. Nobody cared. Perry stared at the house where his mother had taught him to tie his shoes, where his father had installed a basketball hoop that was now rusted and bent, where Sophia lost her voice the night their parents died. The Roccos had taken everything. We can't go in, Sophia typed. Security comes by. We're not going in. Perry put the truck in reverse. We're going somewhere safe. Where? Perry looked at his sister, really looked at her for the first time since the library. She was so thin, too thin. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights and constant fear. And when her sleeve rode up as she typed, I saw them. Bruises, old ones fading to yellow, fresh ones blooming purple. His vision went red at the edges. Sophia. His voice was very calm, very controlled, the way it got right before violence.
Who did that to you? She pulled her sleeve down quickly, shaking her head. Was it Manly? Has he been hurting you for a while? Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The silence that had claimed her voice 3 years ago still held her hostage. Perry's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. How long? She held up 2 fingers. 2 years? She nodded. The same timeline, the house foreclosed, the parents dead, the brother gone, and Manly Rocco, sensing vulnerability like a shark smelling blood, had moved in for the kill. Where have you been living? Perry asked. Foster care, different houses, some better than others. And now? The Millers. They're okay, but they don't ask questions. Of course they didn't. In a town owned by the Roccos, asking questions was dangerous. Perry made a decision. Pack a bag. We're leaving. Leaving? Not town, not yet, but you're not going back to the Millers. You're staying with me. You don't have anywhere to stay. Perry gestured to the truck bed, where a sleeping bag, a duffel, and a case of water bottles constituted his entire worldly possessions. I've got this, and I've got Foxtrot. It's enough. Dawn, you can't. I can, and I will. He turned to face her fully. Sophia, I know I left you. I know I wasn't here when you needed me most, but I'm here now, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you ever again. The tears spilled over. Sophia threw herself into his arms, sobbing without sound, the most heartbreaking kind of crying. Perry held her, while the sun set over the house where their childhood died, and promised himself that the Roccos would pay for every bruise, every tear, every moment of fear they'd inflicted on his sister. He didn't care what it cost. He didn't care who he had to go through. The Roccos thought they owned this town. They were about to learn the difference between ownership and control. Stanley Rocco stood in his penthouse office overlooking the Kern River oil fields, 40,000 acres of liquid gold that had built his empire, and listened to his son whine about the Navy SEAL who embarrassed him. I want him destroyed. Manly paced like a caged animal. Arrested, ruined. I want him to beg for, shut up. Stanley's voice was quiet, but it cut through Manly's tantrum like a blade. His son fell silent. Stanley was 63 years old, built like a linebacker gone a slightly soft, with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen men broken and bought in equal measure. He wore a suit that cost more than most people's cars and a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than most people's houses. Money was power. Power was control. And Stanley Rocco controlled everything in Kern County that mattered, including the law, the media, the politicians. Everything. Except, apparently, one disgraced Navy SEAL with a death wish. Tell me about Don Perry, Stanley said. Manly pulled out his phone, scrolling. Discharged dishonorably 18 months ago, accused of insubordination and assaulting a commanding officer. The officer was found dead 3 weeks later. Car accident, but there were questions. Questions that went nowhere? The Navy buried it. Perry got a DD-214 that blacklisted him from every military contractor and government job in the country. Stanley considered this. A man with combat skills, no employment prospects, and a dishonorable discharge was either dangerous or desperate. Often both. What brought him back to Oildale? The girl, Sophia Perry, his sister. Stanley walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The mute girl. Yeah, the one who witnessed. I know what she witnessed. Stanley's reflection in the glass showed no emotion. That's been handled. Not anymore. Perry's back. If he starts digging, he won't dig far. Stanley turned back to his son. Men like Perry are predictable. They think they're heroes. They think they can save people. We just need to show him he can't save himself. Stanley pulled out his phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Patterson Construction, where Perry apparently had found work doing day labor. Mark, this is Stanley. That new guy, Perry, let him go. Today. No severance. The second was to Riverside Warehouse. Jerry, you've got a vet on your crew named Perry. Terminate him. Security risk.
The third was to Jack Miller, Perry's landlord. "Jack, I need a favor." By noon, Don Perry would be unemployed, homeless, and broke. By sunset, he'd be desperate enough to take Stanley's money and leave town quietly. And if he didn't, well, Stanley hadn't built an empire by being sentimental about obstacles. "What about the girl?" Manley asked. Stanley looked at his son, this soft, entitled creature who'd never earned anything in his life, and felt a familiar disappointment. "The girl stays where she is. She's the leverage. I want her to—" "What you want," Stanley interrupted, "is irrelevant. The girl is a witness to something that could destroy this family. She stays mute, she stays scared, and she stays visible so Perry knows what happens if he doesn't behave."
Manley's face twisted with frustration, but he knew better than to argue. "Dad, Perry's not going to just leave. He stood up to the cops. He threatened me in front of witnesses." "Because he thinks he has nothing to lose," Stanley smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We're about to teach him otherwise." Most people walk away when things get tough. Real family stays. Subscribe if you're the type of person who never turns their back on family. Perry's phone had been buzzing all morning. Unknown numbers. He'd answered the first two. "Mr. Perry, this is Frank Patterson from Patterson Construction. We're terminating your contract effective immediately." Click. "Mr. Perry, this is Riverside Warehouse. Your position has been eliminated." Click. By the fourth call, his landlord apologetically evicting him, Perry understood what was happening. The Roccos were squeezing. He sat in his truck outside a 24-hour diner, Foxtrot in the passenger seat, Sophia curled up in the back cab with her notebook, the same notebook she'd been obsessively writing in. "Soph," Perry said quietly, "can I see what you've been working on?" She hesitated, then handed it over. Perry opened to the first page and felt his blood run cold. It wasn't homework. It was a dossier. Lucy Martinez, missing. Last seen June 14th, 2022. Age 24. Occupation, waitress, babysitter. Disappeared after reporting assault by MR. MR equals Manley Rocco. The next pages were filled with newspaper clippings, internet printouts, hand-drawn timelines. Sophia had been investigating Lucy's disappearance for months. Perry flipped through page after page. More names, more women, a pattern of abuse stretching back years, all connected to Manley Rocco, all silenced by money, threats, or, in Lucy's case, disappearance. "Who is Lucy?" Perry asked. Sophia's hands moved rapidly across her phone screen. "My babysitter, my friend. She took care of me after Mom and Dad died. She was the only one who made me feel safe." "What happened to her?" "Manley raped her. She tried to report it. The next day they said she had a mental breakdown. They took her to Pinewood Behavioral Health Center." Perry knew that name. Pinewood was a private psychiatric facility an hour outside town, expensive, exclusive, and rumored to be where the Roccos sent their problems. "Is she still there?" "I think so. I've been calling, but they won't tell me anything. They say no one named Lucy Martinez is a patient." Perry's jaw clenched. "When did this happen?" 3 years ago, the same night I stopped talking." Everything clicked into place. Sophia hadn't gone mute because of grief. She'd gone mute because she'd witnessed something. "You saw it happen, didn't you? You saw Manley attack Lucy." Sophia's tears answered for her. "And they threatened you, told you if you ever spoke they'd—" She typed furiously. "They said they'd kill my brother. They said you were overseas, and they had connections. Military accidents happen all the time. If I ever told anyone what I saw, you'd die." Perry felt like he'd been punched in the chest. For 3 years, his baby sister had carried this secret. For 3 years, she had sacrificed her voice to protect him, the brother who had abandoned her. "Sophia," he pulled her into a hug. "I'm here now. They can't hurt me, and we're going to find Lucy." "How?" Good question. Perry had no money, no job, no home. He was wanted by local law enforcement and targeted by one of the most powerful families in California. But he had skills, he had training, and he had something the Roccos didn't expect. He had a team.
Perry pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in 18 months. Michael Cole, Bravo team. His thumb hovered over the call button. The phone rang 3 times. "Perry?" Cole's voice was cautious, surprised. "That really you?" "Yeah, Mike, it's me. Thought you fell off the map." "I did. Now I need to climb back on. You busy?" Silence. Then, "Where are you?" "Oildale, California." "What the hell are you doing in Oildale?" Perry looked at Sophia, who was watching him with desperate hope in her eyes. "Saving my sister, but I can't do it alone. I need the team." More silence. Perry could hear Cole thinking, weighing loyalties against consequences. What kind of heat are we talking? Local corruption, powerful family. They've been using psychiatric facilities to silence victims. Jesus, Perry. I know, it's a lot. But Mike, they hurt my sister. They've been hurting her for years. And there's a woman locked up in a psych ward who tried to expose them. I can't walk away from this. Cole exhaled slowly. "Where and when?" "I'll send coordinates. Come prepared." "Perry?" "Yeah?" "We're not active duty anymore. If this goes sideways, there's no rescue coming." "I know. And whatever happened with your discharge, I never bought that story. But if this is some kind of suicide mission to make amends, it's not." Perry looked at Sophia. "It's the opposite. It's me finally fighting for something that actually matters." Cole was quiet for a beat. 48 hours. I'll rally whoever I can." "Thanks, brother. Don't thank me yet. If this is as dirty as you say, we might all end up in federal prison." "Been in worse places." Cole laughed, short and sharp. Yeah, we have. See you soon." The call ended.
Perry turned to Sophia. "We're going to get Lucy out, and we're going to make the Roccos answer for everything they've done." "How?" Perry smiled. It was the smile that had terrified enemy combatants in 6 different countries. "By doing what SEALs do best, we're going to hit them where they don't see us coming. We're going to use their own confidence against them, and we're going to prove that money can't buy immunity from justice." "You sound like Dad." The comment hit Perry harder than any punch. Their father had been a cop, honest, idealistic, killed in a car accident that Perry had always suspected wasn't an accident. "Dad would have done the same thing," Perry said quietly. "Dad had backup, the law. You don't have anything." "I have you. I have Foxtrot. I have my team. And I have the truth." Perry tapped the notebook. "Lucy Martinez exists. She's in that facility, and we're going to get her out and let her tell the world what Manly Rocco really is." "What if they kill us?" Perry met Sophia's eyes. "Then we die fighting, but we don't die running. Not anymore." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a phone, not her regular one, an old burner phone with a cracked screen. "I recorded it," she typed. "The night Manly attacked Lucy. I had my phone. I was so scared I just started recording. I have everything." Perry's heart stopped. "You've had evidence this whole time?" "I was too scared to use it. They said they'd kill you." "Can I see it?" Sophia unlocked the phone with trembling fingers and pulled up a video file dated June 14, 2022. Perry pressed play. The footage was shaky, shot from between bookshelves in what looked like a library storage room, but the audio was crystal clear. Manly Rocco's voice. "Nobody says no to me." Lucy's voice. "Stop, please, you're hurting me." Sounds of a struggle, tearing fabric, muffled screams. Perry's vision went red. He stopped the video before it went further. "This," he said, voice shaking with controlled rage, "is going to destroy them. They'll say it's fake. They have lawyers, money. They have lawyers and money. We have proof. And we have something they don't." "What?" Perry looked at the notebook, at the video, at his sister who'd carried this burden alone for 3 years. "We have people who actually give a damn about the truth." Michael Cole pulled up to the diner 48 hours later driving a blacked-out Ford Raptor that screamed tactically overkill. He stepped out wearing jeans, a black jacket, and the kind of confidence that came from surviving 10 years in the most elite fighting force on the planet. Behind him, 3 more vehicles arrived. Perry watched through the diner window as his old team assembled in the parking lot like the cast of a very dangerous reunion. Diana Santos, former SEAL intelligence analyst, now working private security. She'd always been the smartest person in any room. Tony "Doc" Williams, combat medic who'd saved more lives than Perry could count. Retired now, running a veterans clinic in San Diego. Jake "Chief" Morrison, their former team leader, 45 years old, decorated, honorably discharged. The kind of man who commanded instant respect. Perry stood and walked outside. Foxtrot followed, tail wagging when he recognized Cole's scent. "Looking rough, Perry," Cole said, pulling him into a brief hug. "Could say the same about you. Difference is, I chose to look like this. You look like you've been living in your truck." "I have been." Chief stepped forward. "Heard you needed some help with a local corruption problem." "That's putting it mildly, Chief. Well, we were getting bored anyway. Diana was doing corporate security. Doc was playing nurse. I was fishing. This sounded more interesting." Perry felt something tight in his chest loosen. He'd thought he was alone, thought his dishonorable discharge had burned every bridge. But here they were, his team, his family. "Thank you," he said quietly. "All of you. This means—" "Save it," Diana interrupted. "You'd do the same for us. What's the mission?" Perry pulled out Sophia's notebook and the burner phone. 3 years ago, a woman named Lucy Martinez was assaulted by Manly Rocco, son of Stanley Rocco, local oil mogul and all-around piece of work. She tried to report it. Within 24 hours, she was committed to a private psychiatric facility called Pinewood. He passed around the notebook. "My sister witnessed the assault. The Roccos threatened her into silence by saying they'd kill me if she ever spoke. She's been mute ever since." Doc's expression went dark. "They threatened a 14-year-old? Perry repeatedly, for 3 years. Perry showed Sophia's bruises. "This is recent. Manly's been using her silence as permission to continue the abuse." "Where's Manly now?" Cole's voice was very calm, very dangerous. "He's protected by local law enforcement that's on his father's payroll. We can't touch him legally, not yet." "What about Lucy Martinez?" "Still in Pinewood. We need to get her out and get her testimony on record. With her statement and Sophia's video, we can go to the FBI." Chief studied the notebook. "Pinewood's a private facility. Security will be tight. We can't just walk in and grab her." "No," Perry agreed, "but we can make them bring her out." The team looked at him. "How?" Diana asked. Perry smiled. "By doing what SEALs do best. We're going to hit them where they don't see us coming. We're going to use their own confidence against them, and we're going to prove that money can't buy immunity from justice." "You sound like Dad." The comment hit Perry harder than any punch. His father had been a cop, honest, idealistic, killed in a car accident that Perry had always suspected wasn't an accident. "Dad would have done the same thing," Perry said quietly. "Dad had backup, the law. You don't have anything. I have you. I have Foxtrot. I have my team. And I have the truth." Perry tapped the notebook. "Lucy Martinez exists. She's in that facility, and we're going to get her out and let her tell the world what Manly Rocco really is." "What if they kill us?" Perry met Sophia's eyes. "Then we die fighting, but we don't die running. Not anymore." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a phone, not her regular one, an old burner phone with a cracked screen. "I recorded it," she typed. "The night Manly attacked Lucy. I had my phone. I was so scared I just started recording. I have everything." Perry's heart stopped. "You've had evidence this whole time?" "I was too scared to use it. They said they'd kill you." "Can I see it?" Sophia unlocked the phone with trembling fingers and pulled up a video file dated June 14, 2022. Perry pressed play. The footage was shaky, shot from between bookshelves in what looked like a library storage room, but the audio was crystal clear.
Manly Rocco's voice. Nobody says no to me. Lucy's voice. Stop, please, you're hurting me. Sounds of a struggle, tearing fabric, muffled screams. Perry's vision went red. He stopped the video before it went further. This, he said, voice shaking with controlled rage, is going to destroy them. They'll say it's fake. They have lawyers, money. They have lawyers and money. We have proof, and we have something they don't. What? Perry looked at the notebook, at the video, at his sister who'd carried this burden alone for 3 years. We have people who actually give a damn about the truth. Michael Cole pulled up to the diner 48 hours later driving a blacked-out Ford Raptor that screamed tactically overkill. He stepped out wearing jeans, a black jacket, and the kind of confidence that came from surviving 10 years in the most elite fighting force on the planet. Behind him, 3 more vehicles arrived. Perry watched through the diner window as his old team assembled in the parking lot like the cast of a very dangerous reunion. Diana Santos, former SEAL intelligence analyst, now working private security. She'd always been the smartest person in any room. Tony Doc Williams, combat medic who'd saved more lives than Perry could count. Retired now, running a veterans clinic in San Diego. Jake Chief Morrison, their former team leader, 45 years old, decorated, honorably discharged. The kind of man who commanded instant respect. Perry stood and walked outside. Foxtrot followed, tail wagging when he recognized Cole's scent. Looking rough, Perry, Cole said, pulling him into a brief hug. Could say the same about you. Difference is, I chose to look like this. You look like you've been living in your truck. I have been. Chief stepped forward. Heard you needed some help with a local corruption problem. That's putting it mildly, Chief. Well, we were getting bored anyway. Diana was doing corporate security. Doc was playing nurse. I was fishing. This sounded more interesting. Perry felt something tight in his chest loosen. He'd thought he was alone, thought his dishonorable discharge had burned every bridge. But here they were, his team, his family. Thank you, he said quietly. All of you. This means... Save it, Diana interrupted. You'd do the same for us. What's the mission? Perry pulled out Sophia's notebook and the burner phone. 3 years ago, a woman named Lucy Martinez was assaulted by Manly Rocco, son of Stanley Rocco, local oil mogul and all-around piece of work. She tried to report it. Within 24 hours, she was committed to a private psychiatric facility called Pine.
No, but someone did, and the Navy decided I was a convenient scapegoat. That's why you got DD'd instead of court-martialed. They couldn't court-martial me without exposing the corruption. Easier to just ruin my reputation and bury the whole thing. Cole gripped Perry's shoulder. We've got your back now, brother, whatever comes. Even if it means going up against local law enforcement? We've faced worse odds. Perry looked at his team, these warriors who'd chosen to stand with him despite having nothing to gain and everything to lose. Let's go get Lucy, he said, and let's make sure the Roccos never hurt anyone again. Diana Santos sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from Pinewood Behavioral Health Center, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. She'd been a Navy intelligence analyst for 8 years before going private. She could hack most civilian systems in her sleep. Pinewood's firewall was embarrassingly weak. Within an hour, she had staff schedules, patient rosters, and security protocols. Within 2 hours, she had something better. Financial records. Oh, you idiots, she muttered, downloading files to an encrypted drive. The coffee shop door chimed. Cole slid into the seat across from her. Tell me you found something. Better. I found everything. Diana turned the laptop so he could see. Pinewood has been receiving monthly payments from Rocco Industries for the past 3 years, always labeled as facility donations. How much? $50,000 a month. Whistle, that's a lot of generosity. It gets better. Each payment coincides with a patient admission, and guess who the attending physician is for all these admissions? Dr. Harold Finch? You know him? Looked him up. He lost his medical license in Nevada for prescribing unnecessary medications, moved to California, got licensed here, and now works exclusively at Pinewood. Diana pulled up another document. Lucy Martinez was admitted June 15, 2022. Diagnosis: acute psychotic episode with paranoid delusions. Recommended treatment: long-term sedation and isolation. Convenient. Here's the kicker. Diana showed him Lucy's medical chart. She's been on a cocktail of antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, and sedatives for 3 years, doses that would keep someone in a fog indefinitely. Can we prove it's intentional? Her diagnosis changes every month. Sometimes she's bipolar, sometimes she's schizophrenic, sometimes she has borderline personality disorder. It's not medicine, it's imprisonment with pills. Cole's jaw tightened. Can we get us access? To the facility? Maybe. But getting Lucy out is another story. She's in the secure wing. Electronic locks, 24-hour monitoring, staff rotations every 8 hours. Can we get a court order? Diana laughed bitterly. From which judge? Every judge in Kern County has received campaign contributions from Stanley Rocco. We'd need to go federal. That takes time, which Lucy doesn't have. Diana pulled up another file. I found communications between Dr. Finch and Stanley Rocco. They're talking about increasing Lucy's medication, making sure she's never coherent enough to be a credible witness. Cole's jaw tightened. So we can't go through legal channels. We can't wait. We need to get her out now. Perry's not going to like the answer. What answer? Diana met his eyes. We break her out. Full tactical extraction, in and out before anyone knows what happened. That's a felony. So is false imprisonment, drugging someone against their will, conspiracy to cover up a rape. Diana closed her laptop. Sometimes the law isn't on the side of justice. Sometimes you have to make your own justice. Cole smiled. You sound like Perry. Perry's right. The Roccos have owned this town for too long. Someone needs to remind them that money doesn't buy immunity. When do we move? Doc's got a contact inside Pinewood, a nurse who's been documenting the abuse. She can get us access codes and staff schedules. We hit them during shift change, 3 a.m., minimal staff, maximum confusion. How many guards? 4 on site, 2 at the front desk, 1 roaming, 1 in the security office monitoring cameras. We can handle 4. Diana's phone buzzed. A text from Doc. Got the nurse. She's in. Sending details now. Looks like we're a go, Diana said.
Cole stood. I'll tell Perry. Get the extraction plan to Chief. We move in 48 hours. Cole? He turned back. If this goes wrong, we're all going to prison. You know that, right? Yeah, Cole smiled. But we've been to worse places than prison. We're approaching the final showdown. If you want to see the Roccos get exactly what they deserve, comment "No Mercy" below. 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, the darkest hour when the world was suspended between yesterday's failures and tomorrow's possibilities. Perry sat in the passenger seat of Cole's Raptor, watching Pinewood Behavioral Health Center through night vision binoculars. The facility looked peaceful, quiet, innocent. A lie told in brick and mortar. "Com check," Chief's voice crackled through Perry's earpiece. "Lima 1, good," Diana responded. "Lima 2, good," Doc confirmed. "Lima 3, solid," Cole said. Perry pressed his own mic. "Actual, ready." In the back seat, Sophia sat with Foxtrot, wearing a headset that would let her monitor the operation. Chief had argued against bringing her, but Perry had overruled him. "She deserves to see Lucy rescued," Perry had said. "She's earned that." Now, watching the facility, Perry hoped he hadn't made a fatal mistake. "Guard rotation in 3 minutes," Diana's voice. She was in a van half a mile away, monitoring security cameras she'd hacked hours ago. "Roaming guard just entered the east wing," Doc added. He was positioned at the emergency entrance, dressed as a medical courier. "Front desk guards are both on their phones," Cole reported. He was in the lobby, posing as a family member waiting to visit a patient. Perry checked his watch. 0258 hours. "Sophia," he said quietly, "you can still stay here. This part gets dangerous." She shook her head firmly and typed, "I'm going in. Lucy was there for me. I'm going to be there for her." Perry smiled despite the tension. "You really are braver than most SEALs I know." 0259 hours. "Stand by," Chief's voice. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." Everything happened at once. Cole moved first. He approached the front desk with practiced confidence, pulling out a fake ID and a clipboard. "Dr. Morrison, here for a patient evaluation." The guard looked up. "We don't have any evaluations scheduled at." Cole's fist connected with the guard's jaw. One punch. Lights out. The second guard reached for his radio. Doc appeared behind him, pressing a syringe into his neck. "Sedative," Doc whispered as the guard slumped. "He'll wake up in a few hours with a headache." "Cameras looped. You've got 60 seconds before the system reset triggers an alert." Perry and Sophia moved through the entrance Doc had unlocked. Foxtrot led the way, trained nose searching for Lucy's scent from a piece of clothing Sophia had saved. They moved through sterile white hallways, past rooms where medicated patients slept dreamless sleep, past nursing stations where files documented lives reduced to symptoms and side effects. "Third floor, room 314, electronic lock, code 7829. Perry punched in the code. The lock clicked open. Inside, Lucy Martinez sat by a window, staring at nothing. She was 27 years old, but looked 50. Hollow cheeks, dead eyes, the ghost of the vibrant woman she'd once been. "Lucy?" Perry said gently. No response. Sophia pushed past him and knelt beside Lucy's chair. She took Lucy's hand, the same hand that had braided Sophia's hair, made her lunch, told her stories about college and dreams and a future where anything was possible. Lucy's eyes slowly focused. Recognition flickered, dim, but there. "Sophie?" Her voice was slurred from medication. "Is that real?" Sophia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "They said nobody was coming. Nobody cared." Sophia pulled out her phone and typed, showing Lucy the screen. "I never stopped caring. I never stopped looking for you. And my brother is here to take you home." Lucy looked at Perry. "Home?" Perry confirmed. "Home. But we need to move. Can you walk?" "I don't know." Doc appeared in the doorway with a wheelchair. "Let's not find out. We're on a clock." They got Lucy into the chair. Foxtrot positioned himself beside it, protective instincts kicking in. "Facility alarm just triggered," Diana's voice, urgent. "Someone realized the cameras are looped. You've got maybe 2 minutes before lockdown." "Copy," Chief responded. "Extraction route Bravo. Everyone move now." They ran. Well, Perry and Doc ran, pushing Lucy's wheelchair between them. Sophia and Foxtrot ran ahead, clearing corners. Chief and Cole provided rear security, weapons drawn but held low. They weren't here to hurt anyone, just to escape. An orderly stepped out of a supply closet. Cole showed him the gun. "Stay there, don't move. This doesn't concern you." The orderly's hands went up. They hit the stairwell. Perry and Doc carried the wheelchair down 3 flights while Lucy held on, eyes wide with terror and hope. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Perry promised. "Somewhere the Roccos can't reach you." "They can reach everywhere." "Not anymore." They burst through the emergency exit into the parking lot where 2 vehicles waited, Cole's Raptor and a nondescript Honda Diana had procured. Sirens wailed in the distance, local police responding to Pinewood's alarm. "Go, go, go!" Chief shouted. They loaded Lucy into the Honda. Sophia climbed in beside her, holding her hand. Foxtrot jumped into the back seat, positioning himself between the women and any potential threat. Diana was behind the wheel. "Buckle up." She floored it. Perry, Doc, Cole, and Chief piled into the Raptor. Cole drove, using back roads and service alleys to avoid the police response. "Diana," Perry said into his mic. "Status?" "Clear. No pursuit. Taking her to the safe house." "Roger. We'll RV in 30. Perry looked back at the facility. Lights were coming on in windows. Staff were spilling into the parking lot. Security guards were checking vehicles. But Lucy Martinez was free. For the first time in 3 years, she was free. "Phase 1 complete," Chief said.
Now comes the hard part, Perry replied. Cole glanced at him. Getting her testimony on record? No, keeping her alive long enough to deliver it. Because Stanley Rocco just learned that his dirty secret was no longer buried, and men like Stanley didn't react well to exposure. They reacted violently. The war was just beginning. The call came at 6 a.m. Perry was at the safe house, a hunting cabin Chief had rented under a fake name, when his burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Perry? Stanley Rocco's voice was silk over steel. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Lucy Martinez isn't property. Nevertheless, I'd like her returned, along with any documentation your sister might have collected. Perry walked outside so Lucy and Sophia couldn't hear. Not happening. I thought you might say that. So let me make this very simple. Stanley's tone hardened. I have resources you can't imagine. Friends in law enforcement, the judiciary, federal agencies. I can have you arrested for kidnapping, breaking and entering, assault. I can have your sister taken into state custody. I can have that dog of yours declared dangerous and euthanized. Perry's grip tightened on the phone. You can try. I don't try, Mr. Perry. I succeed. Every time. Stanley paused. Or we can make a deal. What kind of deal? $5 million, tax-free, deposited in any account you choose. In exchange, you return Lucy Martinez to her medical care. You destroy whatever evidence you think you have, and you leave California forever. Perry laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You think you can buy me? Everyone can be bought. It's just a matter of finding the right price. $5 million is generous, more money than you'll see in 10 lifetimes. My sister's safety isn't for sale. Your sister will be perfectly safe. I'll even arrange for her adoption by a good family, top-tier education, every advantage. While Manley goes on raping women? Stanley's voice went cold. My son made a mistake. It's been handled. Handled? You buried it. You drugged the victim and locked her in a psychiatric prison for 3 years. I protected my family, as any father would. Perry looked back at the cabin, where Sophia was sitting with Lucy, both of them finally feeling safe for the first time in years. Here's my counteroffer. You turn yourself and Manley in to the federal authorities. You cooperate fully with the investigation, and maybe I don't release the evidence that will destroy your entire empire. Silence. Then Stanley laughed. You're bluffing. You have nothing. I have video of Manley raping Lucy Martinez. I have medical records showing you paid to keep her drugged. I have financial records connecting you to multiple cover-ups. And I have testimony from 17 other women your son assaulted. The silence stretched longer this time. Last chance, Perry. Take the money, walk away, live. Or you learn why I own this county, and why people who cross me tend to disappear. The call ended. Perry stood in the early morning light, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Stanley had just made a fatal mistake. He'd threatened Sophia. Perry walked back inside. The team was gathered around the table, watching him. He's running, Perry said. Stanley knows we have enough to destroy him. He's going to try to flee the country. How do you know? Diana asked. Because that's what I would do. Cut losses, disappear, live out his life in a country without extradition. Chief pulled up his phone. I've got contacts in CBP. Let me make a calls. 20 minutes later, Chief had confirmation. Private flight filed for this afternoon, departing from Caron Valley Airport, small airstrip, the Rocco Zone. Destination, Grand Cayman. What about Manley? Listed as a passenger.
How? Diana asked. Perry looked at Sophia. She was typing on her phone, showing the screen to Lucy. Both women were scared, but determined. We give them what they want, Perry said. Sophia, Lucy, the evidence. We make them think they've won. That's suicide, Chief said flatly. No, it's strategy. Perry pulled out a map of the airfield. The Roccos think they're in control. They think money and power make them untouchable. We're going to prove them wrong. By walking into a trap? By turning their trap into ours. Perry outlined the plan. It was risky, Borderline insane, the kind of operation that required perfect timing, absolute trust, and a willingness to bet everything on a single moment. "We don't have authorization," Chief warned. "No legal backing. If this goes wrong, we're all going to federal prison." "I know. That's why I'm not asking anyone to come with me. This is my fight." Cole stood. "Like hell it is." Diana stood beside him. "We're a team." Doc stood. "You don't get to have all the fun." Chief looked at each of them, then at Perry. "Your plan is insane." "I know. And it'll probably get us all killed or arrested." "Probably. Count me in." Perry felt that tightness in his chest again. Brotherhood, family, the things that couldn't be bought or sold. "Thank you," he said quietly. "All of you." Sophia approached, holding her phone. She'd typed a message. "I'm coming too." "Absolutely not," Perry said. "Lucy needs me, and you need someone Stanley will believe is bait. I'm coming." "Soph, I've been running for 3 years. I'm done running." Perry looked into his sister's eyes and saw their father's stubbornness reflected back at him. "Fine," he relented. "But you follow orders, you stay safe, and if anything goes wrong, you run. Promise me." Sophia hugged him, then pulled back and typed, "Only if you promise the same thing." Perry smiled despite everything. "Deal." They arrived at Kern Valley Airport at 1400 hours. The airfield was small, one runway, one hangar, security that consisted of a chain-link fence and a board guard. The Rocco's private jet sat on the tarmac, engines warming. Perry watched through binoculars from a ridge half a mile away. He could see movement around the aircraft, security loading luggage, Stanley and Manley boarding. "They're early," observed Cole. "Paranoid," Perry corrected. "Stanley knows we're coming. He's trying to get ahead of us." "Diana?" Chief spoke into his mic. "Positioned." Diana's voice came back. She was on the opposite ridge with a long-range camera, documenting everything. "Doc? Ready." Doc was in the hangar, posing as a mechanic worker. He had access to fuel lines and communication systems. "Cole? Good to go." Cole was at the perimeter, ready to disable security if needed. Perry turned to Sophia. "Last chance to stay behind." She shook her head. "Okay." Perry keyed his mic. "All units, execute on my mark." He pulled out his phone and called Stanley Rocco. The oil mogul answered immediately. "Perry, decided to take my offer? We need to talk, face to face. I'm rather busy at the moment. I have your son's assault on video. I have Lucy Martinez ready to testify, and I have 17 other women prepared to file charges. You want this to go away? We talk. Now." Silence. Calculation. "Where?" Stanley finally asked. "Your plane. You, me, Sophia, and Lucy. We negotiate terms." "You expect me to believe you'll just hand over the evidence? You expect me to realize that I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder. You give me guaranteed immunity, pay for my sister's education and Lucy's rehabilitation. In exchange, everything goes away." More silence. Perry could almost hear Stanley's mind working, weighing risks, assessing angles. 20 minutes, Stanley said. "Come alone, armed, and this deal is off." "Agreed." The call ended. Chief looked at Perry. "You really think he'll negotiate?" "No, he'll try to kill us and take the evidence." "So why walk into it?" Perry smiled. "Because he's expecting victims. We're going to show him warriors." They drove to the airfield. Perry, Sophia, Lucy, and Foxtrot in the truck, the team shadowing from concealed positions. The guard at the gate stepped out, hand on his weapon. "Mr. Rocco's expecting you. Leave the dog." "The dog stays with me," Perry said. The guard looked uncertain, then spoke to his radio, listened, nodded. "Fine, but if he bites anyone, he gets shot." "I won't bite unless I tell him to." They entered the airfield. The jet sat gleaming in the afternoon sun, stairs extended, engines warming. Perry watched through binoculars from a ridge half a mile away. He could see movement around the aircraft, security loading luggage, Stanley and Manley boarding.
They're early, observed Cole. Paranoid, Perry corrected. Stanley knows we're coming. He's trying to get ahead of us. Diana? Chief spoke into his mic. Positioned, Diana's voice came back. She was on the opposite ridge with a long-range camera, documenting everything. Doc? Ready? Doc was in the hangar, posing as a mechanic worker. He had access to fuel lines and communication systems. Cole? Good to go. Cole was at the perimeter, ready to disable security if needed. Perry turned to Sophia. Last chance to stay behind. She shook her head. Okay, Perry keyed his mic. All units, execute on my mark. He pulled out his phone and called Stanley Rocco. The oil mogul answered immediately. Perry, decided to take my offer? We need to talk, face to face. I'm rather busy at the moment. I have your son's assault on video. I have Lucy Martinez ready to testify, and I have 17 other women prepared to file charges. You want this to go away? We talk. Now. Silence. Calculation. Where? Stanley finally asked. Your plane. You, me, Sophia, and Lucy. We negotiate terms. You expect me to believe you'll just hand over the evidence? You expect me to realize that I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder. You give me guaranteed immunity, pay for my sister's education, and Lucy's rehabilitation. In exchange, everything goes away. More silence. Perry could almost hear Stanley's mind working, weighing risks, assessing angles. 20 minutes, Stanley said. Come alone, armed, and this deal is off. Agreed. The call ended. Chief looked at Perry. You really think he'll negotiate? No, he'll try to kill us and take the evidence. So why walk into it? Perry smiled. Because he's expecting victims. We're going to show him warriors. They drove to the airfield. Perry, Sophia, Lucy, and Foxtrot in the truck, the team shadowing from concealed positions. The guard at the gate stepped out, hand on his weapon. Mr. Rocco's expecting you. Leave the dog. The dog stays with me, Perry said. The guard looked uncertain, then spoke to his radio. Listened, nodded. Fine, but if he bites anyone, he gets shot. I won't bite unless I tell him to. They entered the airfield. The jet sat gleaming in the afternoon sun, stairs extended, engines warming. Perry watched through binoculars from a ridge half a mile away. He could see movement around the aircraft, security loading luggage, Stanley and Manley boarding. They're early, observed Cole. Paranoid, Perry corrected. Stanley knows we're coming. He's trying to get ahead of us. Diana? Chief spoke into his mic. Positioned. Diana's voice came back. She was on the opposite ridge with a long-range camera, documenting everything. Doc? Ready. Doc was in the hangar, posing as a mechanic worker. He had access to fuel lines and communication systems. Cole? Good to go. Cole was at the perimeter, ready to disable security if needed. Perry turned to Sophia. Last chance to stay behind. She shook her head. Okay, Perry keyed his mic. All units, execute on my mark. He pulled out his phone and called Stanley Rocco. The oil mogul answered immediately. Perry, decided to take my offer? We need to talk, face to face. I'm rather busy at the moment. I have your son's assault on video. I have Lucy Martinez ready to testify, and I have 17 other women prepared to file charges. You want this to go away? We talk. Now. Silence. Calculation. Where? Stanley finally asked. Your plane. You, me, Sophia, and Lucy. We negotiate terms. You expect me to believe you'll just hand over the evidence? You expect me to realize that I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder. You give me guaranteed immunity, pay for my sister's education, and Lucy's rehabilitation. In exchange, everything goes away. More silence. Perry could almost hear Stanley's mind working, weighing risks, assessing angles. 20 minutes, Stanley said. Come alone, armed, and this deal is off. Agreed. The call ended. Chief looked at Perry. You really think he'll negotiate? No, he'll try to kill us and take the evidence. So why walk into it? Perry smiled. Because he's expecting victims.
We're going to show him warriors." They drove to the airfield. Perry, Sophia, Lucy, and Foxtrot in the truck, the team shadowing from concealed positions. The guard at the gate stepped out, hand on his weapon. "Mr. Rocco's expecting you. Leave the..."
Cole appeared from the perimeter, weapon raised. "Armed federal agent, drop your weapons." He wasn't federal anything, but the guards didn't know that. Doc cut the jet's fuel line. Fuel poured across the tarmac, creating a very visible, very flammable barrier. Chief appeared behind Stanley and Manley, weapon pressed to Stanley's back. "Everybody stays calm and nobody dies today." Stanley's face went from confident to confused to furious in seconds. "You don't have the authority." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "they do." Everyone turned. State Police Captain Patricia Okonkwo stepped out of an unmarked vehicle, flanked by 6 state troopers in tactical gear, all armed, all pointing weapons at the Roccos. "Stanley Rocco, Manley Rocco, you're under arrest for kidnapping, false imprisonment, rape, conspiracy, and about 17 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you." Perry stared. "Captain Okonkwo?" She smiled. "Did you really think I'd let civilians run a tactical extraction without supervision? I've had teams watching you for 48 hours. You let us break Lucy out? I let you document evidence of false imprisonment, which gives me probable cause for arrest. Sometimes you have to let the wolves hunt to find the den." Stanley's lawyers were already on their phones, already shouting about rights and warrants and illegal searches, but Okonkwo just smiled. "Save it for the judge. Federal judge. Your local connections don't work here." As the troopers cuffed Stanley and Manley, Perry walked over to Sophia and Lucy. Both women were shaking but alive. "It's over," he said quietly. "You're safe now." Lucy looked at him with tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I thought I'd die in that place." "You didn't die. You survived, and now you get to live." Sophia typed on her phone, showing Perry, "What happens now?" "Now," Perry said, "we go home. Real home, and we build a life where people like the Roccos can't hurt anyone ever again." 6 months later, Perry stood in front of a restored Victorian house in downtown Oildale. The sign out front read, "Perry Advocacy Center, for survivors, by survivors." His military record had been cleared. Turned out the corrupt commanding officer had been under investigation already. Perry's dishonorable discharge was overturned, replaced with an honorable one. Not that it mattered much anymore. This work, helping veterans, supporting assault survivors, connecting people with resources, this mattered more than any medal. The trial had been everything Perry had hoped for. Stanley and Manley Rocco convicted on multiple federal charges, sentenced to 45 and 20 years respectively, no parole. Their empire had crumbled, the oil fields sold to pay restitution, the mansions seized, the name Rocco now synonymous with shame instead of power. 17 women had testified. Lucy Martinez had been the most powerful, standing in front of a federal court and reclaiming her voice after 3 years of forced silence. But it was Sophia's testimony, delivered via written statement and supported by video evidence, that had sealed the conviction. Perry walked into the center. It was opening day. Survivors filled the chairs, people seeking help, people offering help, people who understood that trauma didn't end just because the bad guys went to jail. Lucy was there, working as a victim advocate. 3 months of real medical care had brought her back from the edge. She'd never be who she was before, but she was building someone new, someone stronger. The team was there too. Chief running operations, Diana handling investigations, Doc providing medical and psychological support, Cole teaching self-defense classes, and Sophia sitting at the front desk, greeting people with written notes and compassionate eyes. Perry approached her. "Big day." She nodded, smiling. "You ready for this?" Another nod. Perry handed her a ribbon and scissors. "You want to do the honors?" Sophia stood, walked to the door where a ribbon stretched across the entrance. Media cameras were there. This was news, after all. The siblings who'd taken down a corrupt empire. Sophia raised the scissors. The crowd went quiet. She cut the ribbon, and then, in a voice rusty from 3 years of silence, she spoke her first word. "Brother." The sound was barely a whisper, but to Perry it was thunder.
Tears streamed down his face as he pulled her into a hug. "I'm here, Soph. I'm always going to be here." She pulled back and with effort that showed on her face, spoke again. "Stay. I'm not going anywhere, ever again. That's a promise." The cameras captured it all. The moment a voice silenced by trauma found its way back. The moment a family torn apart by tragedy became whole again. That night, Perry sat on the porch of their new house, bought with settlement money from the Roccos, with Foxtrot at his feet and Sophia beside him. She was practicing speech therapy exercises, rebuilding vocal muscles that hadn't been used in years. It was slow, painful, but she was determined. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," Perry said. Sophia shook her head, typed on her phone. "I'm done being silent. The world needs to hear from survivors, starting with me." Perry smiled. "Dad would be proud of you. He'd be proud of you too. You kept fighting even when it cost you everything." "I got everything back that mattered." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear over Oildale, this town that had been ruled by fear for so long, this town that was learning, slowly, that ordinary people could stand up to extraordinary evil and win. Perry's phone buzzed, a text from Chief. "New case, veteran being harassed by former employer, possible discrimination. You interested?" Perry looked at Sophia. "We've got another mission. You in?" She typed, "Always." He texted back, "We're in. Send details." Because this was who they were now. Perry and Sophia, brother and sister, warriors, advocates. Proof that family was stronger than money. The truth was louder than silence. And courage, real courage, was standing up even when you had every reason to look away. The war against bullies never really ended, but neither did the fight for justice. And Perry was just getting started.